All right, so we're diving into the positive shift. You guys sent in some really interesting passages from it, all about how, get this, changing your mindset can actually help you live longer and happier. But is this just like thinking happy thoughts, or is there more to it?
Oh, it goes way deeper than just surface level positivity. We're talking about real science here. This book digs into how our thoughts, even the ones we barely notice we're having, directly affect our well-being, like literally impact us.
Okay, so less wishful thinking, more like the actual power of our brains.
Mm.
And one of the first things that really jumped out at me was that study, the one with the golfers and the lucky ball. What was that all about?
Oh, yeah. That study is a perfect example of how even a little shift in what you believe can change how well you do something. They told some of these golfers they were using a lucky ball, and guess what? Those golfers, the ones with the so-called lucky ball, they consistently played better than the golfers who weren't told anything special about their ball.
Wait, so the ball itself wasn't magic, it was just that they believed it was.
Yeah.
That's kind of wild when you think about it. If believing in a lucky ball can up your golf game, imagine what believing in yourself could do.
Yeah, right. And that's exactly what the book's getting at. We've got all this untapped potential, and just by tweaking our mindset, we can unlock it, whether it's in our abilities, our health, you name it. And speaking of limiting beliefs, the book also dives into those senior moments we all joke about.
Yeah, it's like the book slips the script on that whole idea. It's not just about aging itself, but our beliefs about getting older.
Exactly. The book makes the case that those senior moments, the ones we laugh about, might actually be because of negative stereotypes we've internalized about getting older, you know? It's like
Yeah.
we're almost programmed to expect our memories to decline as we age.
So it's like if you're going into old age thinking you're going to forget things, you're basically setting yourself up to do exactly that.
Exactly. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Studies actually back this up. People who believe those negative stereotypes about aging, they tend to perform worse on memory tests. They're unconsciously proving themselves right. And that's the crazy part.
Okay, that's kind of scary if you really think about it.
Yeah.
It's like what we believe actually becomes our reality. Makes you think twice about those self-deprecating jokes.
No kidding. This just shows how important it is to challenge those negative stereotypes, even the ones that seem harmless. Being aware of them is like step one, then you can start to dismantle their hold on you.
That's like taking back control, right? Like saying,
Uh,
I'm not defined by these stereotypes and actually choosing how I age.
Yes. And that actually ties into what the book says about stress, too. What if instead of seeing stress as this always bad thing, we thought of it as something that could help us level up?
Hold on, how can something that makes me feel anxious and overwhelmed be a good thing? I'm gonna need some convincing on this one.
All right, so the book talks about the study where they showed people a video about stress. Some people saw stress as totally debilitating, and others saw it as something that could actually enhance their performance. Afterwards, they gave everyone a task. And get this, the people who'd watched the Stress is Good video, they actually did way better.
Wait, so just changing how they thought about stress changed how they actually performed?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. It's almost like a superpower, being able to take something negative and use it to your advantage.
Right, and it all comes back to how powerful our minds are. While the positive shift doesn't explicitly talk about growth mindset, there's definitely a strong connection there.
I see what you mean. Both of them are all about embracing challenges head on instead of shying away from them.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're not defined by our limits. We're defined by our ability to learn, adapt, and grow from challenges, even the stressful ones. That's where the real growth happens.
This is making me rethink how I deal with stuff like deadlines and pressure. Maybe instead of freaking out, I should see those times as chances to really step up my game.
Now you're getting it. It's about realizing you have more control over how you react to things than you think you do. And speaking of things that can positively impact our minds, let's talk about nature.
Yes, because the positive shift talks about how being in nature, even just a little bit, can be so good for both our mental and physical health. It's called the nature advantage, right? Hit me with the science on this one, I'm ready.
Okay, so there was this fascinating study on hospital patients recovering from surgery. They found that the patients who had a view of trees from their windows, they actually recovered faster than the patients who just saw a brick wall. And not only that, they needed less pain medication too.
Wait, seriously? Just looking at trees helped them heal faster? Are you kidding me? What is it about nature that has such a profound effect on us?
There are a bunch of theories out there. One that makes a lot of sense is that nature just engages our senses in a way that's calming and restorative. It gives us a sense of peace and perspective that can be hard to find in our busy urban lives.
I totally get that. Being in nature really does quiet the mental chatter and brings a sense of calm, like hitting the reset button.
Exactly. And that feeling of presence, really being in the moment, it's super beneficial for reducing stress and improving our overall well-being.
Okay, but for those of us who can't exactly escape to the wilderness every time we feel stressed, how do we tap into this nature advantage in our everyday lives?
Well, the book suggests finding those small but meaningful ways to bring nature into our routines. It could be as simple as like taking a walk in a park, getting some plants for your apartment, or even just taking a minute to actually appreciate a beautiful sunset.
It's like being intentional about getting those moments of connection with nature, even if we're in the middle of a crazy busy week. And speaking of being intentional, the positive shift also talks about money, or rather how we can spend it more wisely to actually be happier.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a ton of research that shows that it's not about how much money you have, but how you choose to spend it that really impacts your happiness. The book specifically points to studies that found people who prioritize experiences over possessions tend to be happier.
That tracks for me. Don't get me wrong, I love a little retail therapy every now and then, but it's the experiences, the memories you make, those are the things that really stay with you.
Totally agree. Those adventures you have, those moments that take your breath away, those become part of who you are in a way that just buying stuff never could.
Okay, so experiences over material things. Got it. What are some other ways we can spend our money more wisely, according to the book?
The book's also big on the idea of giving back. Studies show that being generous, even in small ways, can make everyone happier. It's like a win-win. It boosts both the giver's and the receiver's well-being.
I'm all about that. It always feels good to give back, whether it's volunteering, donating to a cause you believe in, or just doing something nice for a stranger.
Right. It's about realizing we're all connected and that even little acts of kindness can make the world a more positive and compassionate place, which ultimately benefits everyone.
Now, this book doesn't shy away from the tough stuff, does it? It also talks about how to handle adversity and find meaning when times get rough. But before we get into that, I'm curious, with all this emphasis on experiences, does it matter who you're sharing those experiences with? Like, is a solo trip as beneficial as, say, a family vacation?
That's a great question, and it actually segues perfectly into the next big idea from the positive shift, the importance of relationships. The book really emphasizes how crucial it is to nurture those close connections, especially as we age, for a truly fulfilling life.
It all comes back to the fact that our social connections are fundamental to our well-being. The book highlights research that suggests older adults actually find more happiness in spending quality time with a close-knit group of loved ones, rather than trying to maintain a huge social circle that might be more superficial. So it's not about how many friends you have on Facebook. It's about the quality of your connections. Especially as we get older, it's like we instinctively start to prioritize those relationships that really matter.
Exactly. As we mature, the book suggests that our priorities shift. We're less concerned with expanding our social network and more focused on deepening the bonds we have with the people who truly matter.
It's like that old saying, make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver, the other is gold. But seriously, it makes sense, right? As we realize how precious time is, we want to spend it with the people who bring us joy and support.
Absolutely. And that loops back to our conversation about spending money wisely. When you invest in experiences with loved ones, it's like a double win. You get the happiness boost from the experience itself, and you get the added bonus of strengthening those important relationships.
Like a recipe for happiness, a little adventure, a sprinkle of laughter, and a whole lot of love and connection. Speaking of things that make life richer, the positive shift doesn't just focus on the feel-good stuff, right? It also dives into how we can deal with those tough times, the challenges we all face. So when life throws us a curveball, how do we find meaning in the middle of all that?
Well, the positive shift explores this idea that even when we face adversity, those tough experiences, even though they're painful, can become incredible opportunities for growth and resilience. It's not about pretending that everything is fine when it's not. It's about recognizing the transformative power those challenges can have.
It's like Nietzsche said, that which does not kill us makes us stronger. But it's one thing to quote philosophers, right? It's another thing to actually live it. How does the book support that claim?
The book draws on a ton of research that shows that people who've been through really tough times often come out of it with this incredible sense of meaning and purpose. They face their challenges head on, learned from them, and came out on the other side with a deeper appreciation for life.
So it's not about going out and looking for hardship, but recognizing that when it inevitably shows up, we have choices. We can either let it break us or use it as fuel to grow.
Exactly. The positive shift encourages us to look for those little nuggets of wisdom, those opportunities for growth that are often hidden within those challenging experiences. It's not about being unaffected by adversity. It's about building up that inner strength so we can adapt, learn, and ultimately rise above it.
It makes you wonder if it's those difficult chapters in our lives that really shape who we are, the ones that teach us to really appreciate the good times.
That's a really powerful insight. Life's a mix of joy and sorrow, right? And it's often in those darker moments that we discover just how strong and resilient we truly are.
It's a really important message, especially these days when it seems like everyone's trying to avoid discomfort.
Mhm.
But is there a danger in taking this whole positive thinking thing too far? Like, what about those times when we're really struggling and finding a silver lining feels impossible?
That's a really important point. The positive shift isn't advocating for that kind of toxic positivity, where we bury our heads in the sand and pretend everything's perfect when it's not. It acknowledges that pain is a natural part of being human, and that it's not just okay, but essential to allow ourselves to feel the full range of our emotions, even the uncomfortable ones.
So it's not about denying our struggles, but about finding a way to acknowledge the pain while also holding on to hope and optimism.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we always have a choice in how we respond to challenges. And even though we can't always control what happens to us, we can cultivate that inner strength to choose how we navigate those challenges.
I really appreciate that this book offers a nuanced perspective. It's not some magic formula for happiness, right? It's about giving us practical tools and strategies we can use to build a more positive, resilient mindset.
Right. And that's what makes the positive shift so powerful.
Yeah.
It's based on solid research, but it also gives us tangible steps we can take to create a more fulfilling life.
You've shared some really incredible examples from the book today. Are there any that really stood out to you?
One that really resonated with me was Noel Hancock's story. Remember her?
Refresh my memory.
She was the young woman working as a journalist in New York City, and she suddenly lost her job. But instead of freaking out, she made this bold decision to move to St. John, that's one of the Virgin Islands, and totally reinvented herself as an ice cream vendor.
Oh, right. I love that story. Talk about turning a negative into a positive.
Exactly. It perfectly illustrates how sometimes taking a leap of faith, even when it's scary, can lead to unexpected joy and fulfillment.
It reminds us that even though we might not always be in control of what life throws at us, we can choose how we respond, how we move forward. And sometimes that means embracing the unknown, even if it means getting out of our comfort zones.
That's the beauty of it, right? It's often when we step outside of our comfort zones that we discover what we're truly capable of. That's when we tap into those hidden reserves of strength and resilience we didn't even know we had.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. It's amazing how much power we have over our own happiness and well-being just by understanding how our minds work.
It really is. The positive shift makes such a strong case for the power of our thoughts, and not just for our mental and emotional health, but for our physical health and how long we live, too. It's a holistic approach to living a longer, happier, and more meaningful life.
I think we've covered a lot today, but something tells me there's still more to unpack. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. The positive shift is full of fascinating research and practical insights. We've only just scratched the surface.
Well, then I, for one, am excited to keep exploring. And for our listeners, make sure you tune in for the final part of this deep dive, where we'll go even deeper into the positive shift and its transformative power. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're wrapping up our exploration of the positive shift, figuring out how we can use the power of our minds to live longer, happier lives.
We've covered a lot of ground: how our thoughts affect our performance, the importance of nature, relationships, even how we spend our money.
It's really amazing how all of that ties back to our mindset. And last time, we were getting into something pretty deep, how dealing with tough times can actually help us grow and become more resilient. It sounds good in theory, but actually living it when you're going through something difficult, that's got to be a whole different story.
You're telling me. It's not like we can just snap our fingers and see the upside when things are hard. And the book doesn't expect us to ignore hardship or plaster on a fake smile either. It gets that pain is a part of life, and that it's okay, it's even important to let ourselves feel all of our emotions, even the tough ones.
So how do we find that balance? How do we deal with those difficult emotions in a healthy way without getting pulled under by all the negativity?
Well, that's where mindfulness and self-compassion come in. The book talks about learning to just observe our thoughts and feelings without judging them. Like we're watching clouds go by, we see them, we let them pass, but we don't let them take over.
It's about creating some space between us and our thoughts.
Right.
Instead of letting every worry or negative feeling consume us, we can choose how we react.
Exactly. We become the observer of our thoughts, not a slave to them. And that's where self-compassion is so important. When we mess up or fall short, instead of beating ourselves up, what if we treated ourselves with the same kindness we show a good friend who's going through a rough time?
It's like they say, give yourself the same grace you give others. It's easy to be so hard on ourselves, but imagine how things could change if we showed ourselves that same compassion, especially when we need it most.
That's the key. The book suggests that self-compassion can be a game changer when it comes to facing challenges. Imagine, instead of getting lost in self-criticism after a mistake, we see it as a chance to learn and grow.
It's like being on our own team, even when we feel like we've dropped the ball. We're all a work in progress, right? We've talked a lot about the mental and emotional benefits of thinking more positively, but the positive shift takes it a step further, right? It looks at how our thoughts can actually affect us physically.
That's right. There's actually a ton of research that shows a strong connection between having a positive mindset and having better physical health.
Okay, now that's really interesting. I get the mental connection, but how do our thoughts really affect our bodies?
One way is through how our thoughts affect our stress levels. We talked about reframing stress to improve performance, but it's more than that. When we're stressed all the time, our bodies pump out hormones like cortisol, and over time, that can be really bad for us.
Like when you've been so stressed for so long, then you finally relax and bam, you get sick. It's like your body was holding it all in until it could finally let go.
Exactly. So by learning to manage stress, by seeing it as a challenge instead of a threat, we can actually lessen its impact on our bodies.
So a more positive outlook can lead to less stress, which then means better physical health. It's like a chain reaction. What are some other ways our thoughts can impact how healthy we are?
Well, there's more and more evidence that suggests a link between having a positive mindset and things like better sleep, feeling more motivated to exercise, even having a stronger immune system.
Wait, hold on. Our thoughts can affect our immunity. Seriously.
It sounds crazy, but it's true. It all comes back to the mind-body connection. Researchers are finding that people who are more optimistic tend to have better immune responses, so they're less likely to get sick. It's like our thoughts directly affect our body's ability to fight off illness.
This is blowing my mind. The positive shift isn't just about thinking happy thoughts. It's about making different choices, conscious choices, in every area of our lives, from how we deal with stress and nurture our relationships to how we use our time and money.
You got it. It's about realizing that we're not just along for the ride in this thing called life. We're active participants, and we have more control than we think.
This deep dive has been so insightful, so many actionable things we can take away from it. As we wrap up, what's one big takeaway you hope our listeners will hold on to?
For me, the most empowering message from the positive shift is that we get to choose our mindset. We can choose to focus on the negative, or we can actively choose to focus on the positive, to look for the good in ourselves and the world around us.
And that change in perspective, that choice we make every day, it can really create a ripple effect of positive change.
Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder that we aren't defined by our circumstances, but by how we respond to them. We have this incredible power to shape our own reality just by changing how we see things.
This has been an awesome journey exploring the positive shift. Before we go, I want to leave everyone with a question from the book, something I think is worth some serious thought. The question is, what one belief about yourself, if you were to change it, could have the biggest positive impact on your life?
Wow, that's a powerful question. It makes us look inward and examine those deep-seated beliefs that might be holding us back from truly living our best, most authentic lives.
So, to everyone listening, take some time to really think about that. What one belief, if you dared to challenge it, could unlock a brighter, more fulfilling future for you? And that's it for a deep dive into the positive shift. We hope you found it insightful and empowering. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.